Expansion of the cosmos, the idea of multiple universes, and the possibility that beyond everything, we know there is no darkness, emptiness, or nothingness, but nowhere at all. To understand it better, it is necessary to distinguish two concepts that people usually confuse: the observable universe and the actual universe. The former refers to that portion of reality from within which the light is capable of reaching us since the cosmic expansion has begun. While light travels quickly, it is far from instant. As we gaze at the moon, we see it as it appeared 1 second ago. When we look at the sun, we observe it as it looked 8 minutes ago. As we explore distant galaxies, we witness them as they were several billion years back. As such, observing the sky is simultaneously exploring the history of the cosmos. However, there is a limitation here. As the universe is of finite age, some light rays have not been able to reach us by now, thus forming a cosmic boundary called the cosmic horizon. This horizon is not the physical wall, nor is it the edge of space itself. It merely designates the furthest limit we can currently observe. One can imagine it as being situated on an incredibly foggy plain. One could look around, but would not see very far. The fog does not end the plain, rather, it hides whatever is located there. Similarly, the universe has not come to an end beyond the cosmic horizon. Rather, it simply goes beyond what we can see. Hence, one cannot consider the concept of beyond the universe quite literally. At best, the term would designate the space that is outside the cosmic horizon. As such, when people ask what is located outside of the universe, their assumption is somewhat incorrect. There is every reason to believe that beyond the observable horizon, more of the universe is waiting. Namely, more galaxies, more stars, more energy, and more time for them to exist. Some regions of space have simply not yet sent their light signals to Earth. Nonetheless, the question itself has more to it. Namely, if one tries to explore the universe, what will they find once they leave it? Will the universe have a boundary? By definition, any object has a boundary, be it a house, a country, a planet, or a galaxy. All these things have definite borders, beyond which lie empty space, the next country, or the intergalactic medium. As such, humans intuitively perceive the universe in similar terms, as a huge cosmic bubble surrounded by endless darkness. However, there is an issue with that assumption. Unlike houses, countries, planets, or even galaxies, the universe does not belong to a higher plane of reality. Rather, the universe is composed of all planes of malpity known to humanity. As such, the concept of going beyond the universe starts sounding very weird. To go somewhere, one needs space. Moreover, he or she needs a point where to start the trip from and direction to go in. However, if space is itself a part of the universe, the idea of being beyond the universe becomes meaningless. There is no space left where to be. There is no point to depart from. Moreover, there is no direction. In other words, there is nothing beyond the universe, not because there is empty space beyond, but because the idea of beyond simply disappears there. Nevertheless, there are a few different views on this. First, some scholars assume the universe to be infinite. Such a statement would mean that no further space can be detected by any means imaginable. In other words, regardless of how far one would try to travel, more and more space would await beyond any previous destination. There would be infinite amount of time and dark skies filled with countless amounts of galaxies and stars. Such an idea would defy the human mind entirely, as it is used to boundaries. Roads stop at some point. Water bodies have shores. Walls define spaces. Even lives themselves have beginnings and ends. However, infinity is nothing like that. As such, if the universe is infinite, the question of what would lie beyond would be utterly ridiculous. There would be no such thing, as infinity has no limits and no end. Yet, it is possible that the universe is finite, albeit has no edges whatsoever. It is hard to imagine such a phenomenon at first glance, as all the limited phenomena the human mind knows of have clear-cut boundaries. Nonetheless, this idea has one very well-known analog. Namely, the surface of our planet is a limited area of reality. However, when a person travels in a straight line across its surface, he or she never encounters any boundary or limit. The surface is finite, yet it has no end. Similarly, space could be curved in such a way that would make the universe finite, but lack any kind of boundary or limits. In such a case, traveling far enough into outer space would eventually make one come back to where he or she started, because space would loop itself back. The question of whether the universe is finite or infinite remains unsolved at this point. However, the observational data show that the universe appears to be pretty close to flatness in large-scale space. However, it does not really confirm the infinite nature of our world. Rather, it proves it has a particular geometric form. It is possible that the entire universe has a much greater area than the observable portion of it. In essence, modern physics teaches humbleness. The entire universe can be analyzed, yet humans are confined to a rather tiny area of it. It would be analogous to an ant exploring the world by moving only along one surface of the planet. Now, one common misconception concerns the idea of the universe being an explosion into space. In reality, the Big Bang hypothesis describes the expansion of space itself, rather than the universe flying out from somewhere. Space expanded, thus separating galaxies into distant objects in the cosmos. Moreover, the expansion did not occur relative to some kind of empty region. There was no place in which matter would be located before expanding. Distances in space began to grow. As a result, matter became scattered. This phenomenon is easier to imagine with a two-dimensional example. One could imagine the surface of an inflated balloon. If someone would draw tiny points on it, then as the balloon would inflate, the distances between them would increase. Similarly, in our universe, every celestial body seems to move away from others as time progresses. However, if one observes a distant galaxy, one would notice the same effect, other galaxies receding. However, there is an issue with that analogy. A balloon expands in the pre-existing medium, air. can space itself undergo similar process? Well, in the theory of general relativity, it does not necessarily have to. In other words, there would be no need for space to expand anywhere. Rather, it could expand in itself. As such, space would increase the distances between points, but it would not need some medium to do so. The problem with such an idea is that it makes humans feel uncomfortable. Humans perceive the world through their senses, so imagining it beyond the limits of these senses is quite difficult. One usually imagines the universe as a huge ball filled with countless galaxies within an empty space. Yet, if the universe is infinite, there would be nowhere to place it into. Thus, humans are left alone with the concept of space in itself. Furthermore, there is an additional possibility. It is possible that the universe is not the only one in existence. Some hypotheses state that there are multiple parallel universes, each with its set of laws of physics. They are separated from each other by the cosmic horizons and have different shapes, sizes, and content. This idea is sometimes called the multiverse hypothesis. In this case, there would be multiple universes that are separated by space. As such, traveling into that space would make it possible for one to explore the neighboring universes. Some of them would be empty. Some would never develop intelligent life forms. Others would explode almost instantly. Still, there could be universes where life would develop in a completely different way than it did in ours. One related hypothesis claims that the universe expands constantly. It is claimed that initially our universe was filled by the process of rapid inflation. However, the inflation does not end abruptly, thus stopping in some locations. It is believed that as it stops, new universes arise. Thus, traveling beyond the observable horizon of the universe could mean entering some other universe. However, this idea should be approached cautiously, as it is highly speculative. Currently, there is no scientific proof of the multiverse hypothesis or inflation processes beyond our universe. As such, although it is not a nonsense in itself, it cannot be presented as something scientifically proven or even highly probable. It is indeed a possibility, but nothing more than that. However, there is one more possibility. The universe could lack an outside at all. Indeed, if the universe consists of all space there is, then it would be pointless to speak of space beyond it. However, this idea makes it necessary to approach the concepts of nothingness differently. The notion of nothingness is a tricky one to grasp. Humans are used to imagine nothingness as black emptiness that fills the world of imagination. As such, when speaking of nothing beyond something, people imply the idea of an empty space beyond. However, such an idea does not really imply the concept of nothingness, as it involves space and emptiness. Thus, when asking about space beyond the universe, one asks about something non-existent. As such, it is necessary to understand that nothingness should involve not only the absence of matter, energy, space, time, and laws, but also the absence of these concepts. In other words, the idea of nothingness should denote the absence of everything and nothing at all. Thus, the question itself seems to lose meaning. as it is based on an incorrect interpretation of the universe and the surrounding concepts. In summary, the main idea is as follows. Humans are familiar with finite things. Every single thing humans know is confined to some boundaries. As such, they usually perceive things in similar terms. A house has walls. A country has borders. A continent is surrounded by the ocean. When people look at the sky, they assume the universe to be similarly structured. However, the universe is different from all the objects mentioned earlier, as it consists of all the space there is to know. In this regard, asking what is outside the universe sounds illogical. There is no outside space. As such, there would be nowhere to be found. Nonetheless, the multiverse hypothesis presents the intriguing alternative. Perhaps the universe is surrounded by other universes. Thus, there is no outside space. Yet, there are other universes beyond ours. However, there is a third option. Namely, the universe could be infinite. Thus, the very idea of an outside space loses its validity. Thus, what is outside the universe? Is it more space? Is it emptiness? Is it other universes? Is it infinity? Or is it no place? At the moment, none of the answers is correct. However, what is fascinating is that it is the question itself.